Okay, very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone joining this webinar today. My name is Dr. Ritwik Mishra. I'm the Chief Client Officer at KNOLSKAPE, and I'll be your host for this webinar. The topic for our discussion today is empowering the manufacturing sector to realize the $1 trillion ambition. As some of you may have heard, India has set an ambitious target of achieving $1 trillion in manufacturing output by 2030. This is as part of our $5 trillion economy target. We are at about $500 billion right now, so we still have some distance to go. But initiatives like Make in India, production-linked incentives, infra development push are really creating a strong foundation for us to be able to achieve this target. AI and automation, of course, are providing the further necessary boost to this. However, in all of this, talent will continue to play an extremely critical and important role. It's the availability of skilled talent that continues to be a challenge among other challenges like skills mismatch, digital unpreparedness, retention and engagement issues, and lack of some basic behavioral skills like critical thinking, emotional intelligence, problem solving, ownership and accountability, and managerial and leadership skills are really impeding the progress towards this goal. Now, we have a great speaker lined up for today's discussion, someone who can help us decipher how manufacturing is working towards addressing these workforce challenges. Joining us today is Nidhi Prasad, Director of Human Resources and Labor Compliance at Ather Energy. Nidhi is a seasoned HR leader with over 21 years of experience in building high-performing, customer-centric organizations. Nidhi in the past has held leadership positions in organizations like GE Healthcare, Tata Power Solar, and HAL. At Ather, Nidhi is instrumental in building a world-class manufacturing culture. She's particularly committed to increasing diversity and inclusion on the shop floor. Her leadership is marked by a strong focus on impact measurement, continuous improvement, and creating a safe and supportive and empowering workplace. Outside of work, Nidhi is a proud mother of 2 daughters. In her spare time, she likes reading, gardening, and volunteering. Please join me in welcoming our guest, Nidhi Prasad. Nidhi, a very warm welcome to you on this webinar.
Thank you, Ritwik. Looking forward to share my experiences with the team and learning from the audience also. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you for joining, Nidhi. And before we jump into the actual discussion, a quick note to our audience. If you have a question, please drop it in the Q&A box, and we'll pick it up towards the end of this conversation. Nidhi, to get us started on the discussion, today the manufacturing companies are being pushed to not just rethink about their operational strategies and operational efficiencies, but also about their workforce strategies. Now you have a whole lot of things coming together like Industry 4.0, automation, AI, robotics, IoT, etc. They are becoming integral to the production process, to quality control, to predictive maintenance, and supply chain optimization. Right? Now, all of this actually brings a very unique challenge here, which is that many frontline workers may not be digital natives, right? And upskilling them at scale while maintaining productivity is a huge challenge. So, given Ather Energy's position at the forefront of EV manufacturing, how are you approaching this challenge of reskilling and upskilling your workforce, especially in adopting modern technologies like AI?
Okay. That's a big question, Ritwik. But as I'll make an attempt, what we have done at Ather. So we are a very digital first organization. And from an EV space, we are the first pioneers. We pride ourselves in getting a fully connected two-wheelers in the Indian market. So our scooters are smart scooters. We have the predictive maintenance told. It gives about the right patterns of the people. It talks about when is the preventive maintenance due. And we have used IoT extensively to improve our product design. And also our updates happens over the air updates. And if you see any EV, people have a lot of anxiety, range anxiety. Like how much charge is sufficient for my scooter to work on? And can I go to the office and come back, or do I need to recharge in between? And that is one of the major roadblocks for people to have and go and buy an EV scooter when they know, compared to an ICE scooter. So we have a complex IoTs and the data of these people so that we have more accurate prediction of it. So that we try to address the customer needs at the center, and we try to minimize whatever are the pain areas of the customer. Having said that, when our product is so integrated, when we come back to the manufacturing line where everything is manufactured, most of our lines are automated. But the workforce which we take are mostly the people who are ITIs, who have just today I take pride in the fact that we have a very diverse workforce in our factory. While we have like more to do, but from a gender perspective, we have maintained quite a healthy ratio. And then they are the first time people who are actually coming into the manufacturing setup itself. So there is a bit of a lag in their training and how do you upskill them. So what we have done is we have identified a strategic workforce framework we have made for it. And each of the process, if you see for our digital lines, we have broken down into small subunits. So we don't make anything as a very complex process. So each process is broken down into 4 levels, and for a skill level, unskilled, semi-skilled, like that. And from a semi-skilled perspective, any process can be learned within 15 days. So we try to go to the process part to it, break it down into simple steps so that it becomes easy for the people to learn. If I tell you to learn like a paragraph, it's difficult. But if I tell you to learn a word, it is easy. So that is how we have attracted, and now we have a very systematic way of training people. So a person who joins our shop floor will be ready for a particular skill in 15 days, which includes, on-the-job training and doing it independently. So that is something which we are leveraging very extensively here.
Okay. Okay. It's great to see, that you're not just focused on embedding some of the emerging technologies into your product for a customer first response, but you're also very sharply thinking about how do you train your workforce. And I really like your inputs around the strategic workforce framework. You spoke about on the job, systemic way to learn. And I think that's the way to go, especially if you're trying to manage both productivity and upskilling to a not so easy skill, in a short period of time. And I, as a learning professional, completely resonate with that one sentence that you said, make it easy to learn, right? So it's always easy to learn a word, and especially if it can be translated to your workplace and how it's going to impact the workplace and then the end customer. So
also, one point would be like the training contents, we don't go it and build from outside. We have it very much in-house built. So it is made by the operators' inputs. So they actually is made in the language which they are able to capture. So what are their pain points? We take a lot of feedback from the operators who are currently there so that it becomes easier for the new batches.
right.
So
right.
that's also something unique which we do here.
I think that's the holy grail whenever we talk in today's day and age, when we are talking about the impact of learning and development. Two key points that keep popping up is personalization and contextualization. And you have to be, as a L&D person, have to be sitting with the business to really understand their pain points and how are they addressing the pain points, the language that they are talking, and bring all of that into the content that you're delivering to be able to create that connect with the learner. So thank you so much for sharing that. Just continuing this discussion, Nidhi, there is a very well documented gap that exists between skills that are needed at the workplace and skills that are being built in academic institutions and vocational training programs. According to a recent National Skill Development Corporation and FICCI report, over 60% of employers in India, manufacturing and auto sector, report difficulty in finding job-ready talent. I don't know if you resonate with this, but in fact, there's another NASSCOM study that indicates only 40 to 45% of engineering graduates are actually employable in Industry 4.0 roles. And this may be accurate because we hear it from our client base as well. So, given this context, what are some of the biggest roadblocks that you are facing in aligning academic or vocational training outcomes with real world skills? And how are you doing it?
Okay. So one important aspect what we have learned through we are very nascent from EB sector is the training which is happening at an ITI college is quite different from what are the skills which we need in the industry. So while people come in for projects from a college perspective, the professors also need to work and do some sort of an industry exposure for them, because when they go back to the student, their idea is still to talk about the earlier ways of the new methods. The professors themselves are not very much equipped at this point of time, so they are not equipped to guide them with the new processes. So unless they enhance their knowledge base, it is very difficult for them to impart. So even if you tell someone, they are not aware of what is happening in the new age industries. So while we make internship as a mandatory thing, we also have to have some sort of tie-up where the professors also do visit the industry and understand what are the new skills required. The second thing is the infrastructure at the ITI colleges, and this machineries which they are using to teach people versus what actually is existing now in the industry. There is a lot of gaps there.
Hmm.
The third gap which I see is also on the curriculum piece. Like, what curriculum is there? Is there a match with
Right.
the industry requirement? So there is always this gap to be filled, and we need a lot of partnership with the industry academia so that that gap can be filled. So what we have done is we have also tied up with few colleges, and we are asking our workforce, like our leaders in the different manufacturing in the quality, to go and deliver few sessions there so that professors are aware of what's happening. So once they are aware, they can guide students better. And if you, we take pride that Ather Energy was born in campus. So we,
Okay.
while it was in incubation center of IT Chennai, so we tried to, have a very soft corner for campuses. And when we started EV, we also didn't have any ready-made talent to go and hire. So we have a lot of our skill building labs here, and we test things here, like all homegrown things. So
Right.
that is what we want to replicate. We're very open to industry and academia to come and work together. So a lot of our technologies are also on the open space where
Right.
people can use.
And I think the same sentiment is also being echoed by the academia, saying that we need to bridge the gap with industry. And they are quite open to new ways of incorporating new ways of learning. I keep hearing about professor of practice coming up, where you bring in people with a lot of significant industry experience into teaching roles. And then, of course, internships are becoming a major source of bridging that gap as well. So those are some great mechanisms that you've called out to address, a critical talent supply chain issue. And I think once the tech foundation is in place, the next critical area, of course, is how do you create future-ready leaders, especially those that are able to operate at the intersection of digital transformation, operational excellence, and people management. Now, when you look at India's rapidly growing EV sector, it's expected to generate over 1 million jobs by 2030. Therefore, leadership capability becomes a strategic differentiator for organizations in this space. Now, leaders in these high growth environments not only need to scale operations across geographies and, of course, take care of a lot of other challenges like supply chain breakups and issues, but also strategize about embedding emerging technologies while balancing the need of the workforce. So this is where it's balancing, futurizing, and humanizing the workforce and the workplace, right? That becomes critical. So in this context, Nidhi, what traits do you prioritize when identifying high potential talent for leadership roles? And how are you developing leaders internally?
Sure. So when you're building a new product, what Ather emphasizes is having a first principles thinking. So you need to use that first principle thinking. And as an engineer, you have to be open to learn and unlearn. Like what has worked in the past might not work in the future. So the balance between the technical acumen and getting the product in the market has always been the priority. How do you exactly get that right fit? So engineers, while they would love to solve a technical problem, but at the end of the day, it has to solve something what people need. So for us also, that becomes the priority. So one is having the first principles thinking. And then the second, what we layer it on top of that is uh, having that ownership mindset. It is not like I'm an employee. It is like a ownership, and then collaboration are the skills which we look forward.
Right.
Rather than thinking that it is someone else's problem and you bring in bureaucracy in. So
Right.
we work in a very cross-functional team where you have members of the quality props, POPs, we call it people operations here, which is HR, and we have manufacturing team coming together and delivering things which is required for the manufacturing process to deliver at its functional level. So you don't have a bifurcation between engineering teams. So you have engineering team members also part of it. So that is how we are structured in a way that we don't think only functional at. Our thing it is you have to solve the problem. You have to be the part of the solution rather than telling, these are the ways why the things won't happen, but rather come up with ideas how to make it work. So that is sort of a acumen which we look at. Having said that, we also have our in-house curated programs where we talk about how you have to have very high emotional quotient.
Right.
Like the leader needs to understand what is the people knowing, where the direction is not clear, but he should be able to inspire people to come along and walk that mile for them. So those are the values or the leadership trait which we try to build in and ingrain. The second thing, because it's a startup and we had most of the people joining through campus in the early days, we have empowered teams to take decision. While in a very structured hierarchical organization, the decision making will be sitting very far away from you. So in our way of working, in an agile way of working, each of the team members who are part of those are responsible to not only be accountable for things, but also take decisions around that. So those are the key skills which we look forward to have these manufacturing leadership in place. So while we have a structured training programs which take them through these different interventions, but from a people soft skill, we look for people who have these already with them and then build on those skills.
Okay. Okay. Can you throw some light, Nidhi, on some of the internal processes that you have for development of some of these skills and capabilities? Some of these, for example, what you're pointing out to is the intrapreneurial nature of a person, right? Being able to take
Yeah.
this, believe that this is your own job, this is your own company, and therefore you are solving problems even under constraints, even under pressures, and you're not thinking only about problems and challenges, but actually solving for it, right?
Yeah.
That's where your ownership mindset also increases. So, any inputs to our audience on how can any organizations that is thinking about building these key attributes can start, and what can they do?
So one is we have a very flat structure, and when we work on a swim lane way of working. So when we say a swim lane way of working, it is mostly a cross-functional team coming together. So when we were moving, a factory from from Whitefield to Hosur, which is, and that too, which happened during the COVID times, there were a lot of uncertainties around, right? Will the workforce move? Will the lines be ready? Will the parts be available? Would the equipment shipping will be there? What are the quarantine rules, which are keep on changing, right? So
Right.
if everyone would have told, that this is how, why you cannot do, if HR would have said, I cannot get people because ITI colleges are just like that, passing people, because there was a government mandate, that you just, you do not allow anyone to fail in those exams. Without practical, the people would have passed the exam, and then you have those people inside your shop floor. Or if we would have said that, because of the quarantine rules, we cannot allow, we are not sure whether the supplier is going to supply or not, because every day there was a new rule coming in. So in
Right.
such cases, what we did, we agreed to sign up for a fixed sort of a risk and ensure that, okay, we don't have skilled manpower, we will have our own in-house dojo setup built. So we knew there is a gap in the thing where, you don't have the labs which were supposed to provide practical training. We might I'd say there are gaps now, but still at least something was being provided while we had our workforce in a time when we are moving to a new facility totally and not able to have even that much basics in place. So we set up our own training sort of a thing, a makeshift sort of a place. Then we started teaching people. Now, how do you teach? That's why we said, we had our operators who were little senior who came in and they started training. So we made our content. The first content was developed by them itself. So there was a lot of collaboration which happened at different stages instead of, and we had a very rigor of a stand up where we told, these are the things which are in a risk. These are the things which we will deliver in a 15 days time frame, and this is what will get delivered in a quarter, and what are the dependencies. We called that out. We did a very rigorous planning process. Having said that, even though we planned, we were also ready to embrace uncertainties which would happen. And how do you do more scenarios around that?
Right.
So what happens, the workforce also, when you see the leadership itself behaving that way, and don't come to the functional leader, if you are there in the meeting, you're expected to know the answers and take decisions. That's how we have imbibed that culture. So if you
Right.
see most of our technical problems, the people in the shop floor don't hesitate that, okay, I am a blue collar, it's not my problem. They will come up with much better solutions.
Right. Right.
So that is what we have built in. And then we have like outbound training program, which tells people to, experience their boundaries and try to come out. While those are the interventions which we still do,
Right.
but it is more on the job where we focus, and it is more like ensuring that we are learning on the go.
Yeah.
So it's not like one size fits all. We try to make the PIs, we plan the scenarios, and then we work towards achieving that.
Yeah.
Like if you see, like we have a lot of government subsidy getting removed from the EV sector.
Right.
I think we did maximum innovation at that point of time last year. Entire industry did so much of innovation that now without subsidy also industry is capable to do.
Right.
While at that point of time, everybody felt that subsidy is required. So innovation happens in times of crisis, and each crisis, I think we have emerged much more stronger.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I really resonate with your scenario-based learning. That's what we do at our core. We build simulations that are reflective of the workplace environment and scenarios that help people really connect to some of the skills and bring it back to the workplace. So completely resonate with that. And what I'm hearing from you, Nidhi, is about role modeling becoming important. Structural changes like the swim lane, that you mentioned, those enable certain skills to also function and come to fruition very quickly. Empowerment as well. But two things that really caught my attention, I want to maybe go a bit deeper with you on this. One is you've been leading HR before COVID or during the COVID phase and post COVID in this organization. So, any reflections of how you've seen the role of HR change or evolve post COVID? We hear quite a bit about how HR has now become a strategic partner. We finally have a seat at the table. But how have you seen, and is it true that CEOs and CEOs are looking at HR a lot more today than before? Any reflections on that?
Yes, I would say it is much more, and also it is about how you are able to bring forth your point. It is not about you say, the governance is required, but how you build the culture. And like culture and governance has to go hand in hand. So if you're only going to tell your CEO that this is not possible, this is not going to possible, because there would be a lot of times when people will not have that much of clarity. We had government directions that, okay, if you have someone who is detected with the COVID, you should quarantine.
Right.
Now the government didn't say for how long you should quarantine the factory. So there
Right.
were like lot of operational decisions which people were able to do at that point of time, which helped the HR people also to understand business better. Like when we were moving a factory, a greenfield factory, when we were trying to build during COVID times, I think my maximum learning happened when I was in those swim lanes, understanding the realities of the logistics world, understanding the realities of the manufacturing people when the line is getting
Right.
stopped due to the process not being written. Because earlier you would have everything written on a piece of paper, but
Right.
now with the digitized thing, and that is why it helped us to do digital thing also,
Right.
adoption much faster. I
Yeah.
remember when I joined Ather in 2019, early, whenever we used to say, like, it's a work from home, people used to say, okay, let's not have work from home. It was like more like everybody in office meeting together in a meeting room, discussing and coming back. But for an organization to move into a totally virtual sort of a structure with this sprint and all, doing that with the same rigor during the COVID period, except for the mandatory not being operative, which is, I think, around 4.5 months of sorts overall, if I take the
Right.
periods. I think that has helped the organizations also to see the importance of culture building. And I think that's the role which HR has played in the organizations which have survived. It's more intentional, I would say.
Right. Right.
Like, how do you treat your employees and how do you connect with the families? We had a lot of issues where, the parents wanted to take the kids back home because we are mostly ITI people, very young people, right? And then single member, why are you staying,
Yeah.
but then how do you connect with the family? You give them the assurance of the safety and what measures have you taken and how do you communicate? So communication also became a big key. And I think post COVID, we have just built on the culture piece, the communication piece,
Yeah.
the active partnership. I think that has what has evolved.
Yeah.
Um, then seat on the table, I would say it's more about how you are able to express and add value to the business.
Right.
I would not say it was not there pre and now it is there. It is mostly about the individual in that particular role, I would say. How do you have that personal courage to talk about people when it is not so favorable to the business and draw insights and able to convince them how it is beneficial in the long run? So
Right.
courage also becomes a very, very critical skill or a competence of an HR person.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think, having that point of view that comes from a lot of data and insights and information that you have of how things are moving around the organization is becoming critical. You earlier you spoke about innovation and how innovation really happens in crisis. We, of course, saw the vaccine development at a crazy speed and innovation at industry level also, because that really showed us how we can work with regulators, governments, and competitors as well in order to bring a vaccine out very quickly. But when you talk about innovation mindset in the routine day-to-day process, one of the things that we often hear, Nidhi, is I don't have the time, right? We don't have the bandwidth to be innovative, but innovation is front and center for you. So how do you balance this time and the need to innovate in your workforce?
So we don't do many things at the same time. And bandwidth, I feel, is something which is very abused word, for a lack of better word. If you don't want to have, the mind space to do something, you will just say you don't have the bandwidth. So we prioritize what is happening or what is going to make or add more value to the business.
Right.
And that is where we have to keep our focus and energy. If we continue to do 15 things which are adding less value versus do 2 things which has a greater impact,
Right.
that is where we would like to focus our energy from an HR perspective.
Makes
So
sense.
I think that's another key aspect. And bandwidth, I feel it's more about the mindset. Once you are thinking as an owner, I
Right.
think you will not, you know what has to be prioritized and what is needed for the organization. You will find time for it. It is if it is important for you. If
Correct.
it is not important for you, you will have definite excuses to say why XYZ happened and why it could not have been completed.
That's true. And I think that's where the role of being able to connect what you're doing to the larger organizational purpose
Yeah.
becomes important, right? So thank you for sharing that, Nidhi. We do have a question for our audience coming up, but before we do that, I do want to get your, okay, so the poll is up. Maybe I'll come back to our question. For the audience, in your experience, what is the biggest barrier to advancing DEI in manufacturing environment? Is it lack of diverse talent pipeline, unconscious bias, resistance to change, limited leadership accountability, or inadequate policies or infra support? So please go ahead and choose your response, and then we'll go back to our conversation with Nidhi. Yeah, I hope the audience has been able to respond. Can we have the results? Okay. Resistance to change coming in from a legacy mindset, maybe that really tops the results here with 40% responses. Very closely followed by lack of diverse talent pipeline. And I think if I was allowed to vote, Nidhi, that's where my vote would be. When you see the talent pipeline itself, it is skewed. And so there has to be a lot of work that needs to be done to push gender equality through talent pipeline across various stages. So thank you everyone for participating in this. I'm going to come back to Nidhi to get her response on DEI on the shop floor. That's one of her favorite topics, and I know you're extremely passionate about that. But I just want to close our conversation on innovation before I come back to this. One of the things around innovation is also how are you handling failures? Right? Because you won't always succeed in your innovation process. So what's the culture that you are establishing at Ather that enables people to innovate without fear?
So in our sprint, we have retros. So retros, we talk about not only the good things, the bad things, and what could have been done differently. That is one thing. We build a lot of psychological safety for the workforce. It is not that a program failed or a charter failed, you yourself are responsible. And there will be no penal action taken for that aspect of it. So, like, having built a culture of psychological safety, I think
Right.
that helps or drives innovation for our workforce. Having said that, the second important aspect is, are leaders really listening? So if leaders are listening, they give lot of what do you say? They give lot of courage to the work, to the employee, or to bring forward their ideas. So if they're listening and you know that your managers have your back, you will innovate much better. Rather than thinking, oh God, if I fail, what's going to happen? So that
Right.
free environment is what helps.
Right.
And in all our retro meetings, we talk about work. Considering these are
Yeah, I think we had a bit of a interruption in your network, Nidhi, but you're fine now. Please continue. Yeah.
Okay. So basically, I was telling it's more about our leaders really listening to you.
Right.
And if the leaders are listening to you, the employee will be more open to come up with new ideas and innovate and understand that in case there is a failure, the leader is behind you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that sort of a culture helps. And we also recognize some failures, and most of the time, what didn't work helps us to build a better and a stronger product next time. So
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
incorporate all those learnings in our new product. So each failure helps us what not to do also.
Yeah, I think that's where the whole concept of growth mindset enables organizations to continuously learn and innovate and keep reinventing itself. The other thing, Nidhi, I also think is the empathy in the communication that leaders are using. And that enables people to understand that leaders have their back. And it's okay as long the intent is in the right place, it's okay to continue to innovate and learn from it. So thank you so much for sharing those insights. I'm going to get us back to the poll results and the question associated with the poll result, which is DEI in manufacturing is still a work in progress. What systemic or cultural barriers have you encountered while improving inclusion, and how have you addressed them?
So at Ather also, it is still work in progress, not that we have solved it. We are also learning how to go about it. Having said that, what we have done as a community, we have engaged with the community there. We have called the parents. We have engaged with the family. We have our own shop floor associates who have gone back to the colleges to hire people, and they've talked about the experience around it. So we have never talked only about what is the facility in Ather inside. We have also talked about how do you develop an ecosystem around it. So how the women are support to each other is one of the important aspects which we have done. We have done a lot of unconscious bias training, in forms of psychodramas to ensure that the managers are aware of biases which creep in even without they knowing about it.
Yeah.
So we have ensured, taking feedback from the workforce which is existing and try to bring out in form of a psychodramas, bring out those strong messages. So that definitely helped us. We have also talked about, because most of these people are first time who are coming into the workforce itself, from a farming sort of a background and first time women coming back. So we have ensured that, we talk about the basic health, the basic sanitation, the basic safety. What are the things they need to do? We have done extensive coaching and learning sessions around POSH. So everything has been thought about right from a person who doesn't know anything, and how can we enable the movement or seamless transition into the industrial world. We have had a very robust buddy system, and we have formed small communities of sort, and what we have done is nothing to do with only with the women per se. We have mini communities which we call as circles. They have a budget, and then they decide what sort of engagement they need to do. There is culture circle, there is health circle, there is hygiene circle, canteen, transport. So what we have done is we have had that empowerment at the ground sub level itself. So
Right.
they decide what has to be done. And then we have, like, once the people are with us for a year, and so we call their families. The expression of the parents, when they see what their kids have achieved, because they have had a very struggling time, and
Right.
seeing that, now that where their kids or their daughters are working, sons are working, the pride which the parents express their feeling, I think that answers more, So we
Yeah.
build on the theme of belongingness, like they think like owners, and the connect is what we try to build, and we try to solve the problem as soon as it comes. Not that we have solutions for it. We form small groups and we make them only come up with better solutions to solve it. So that
Right.
we basically we apply their solutions and try to put it together in sort of a framework so it is more applicable, meaningful for them.
Right. Right. Right.
So
So, yeah, you can complete your thought. I'll come in after that.
no, so that's what I was telling. So it's more like we've also done a bit around PWD hiring, where we have made certain infrastructure changes, like how do you need to do, what are the things which we have to be more conscious about it. So it's all about training, having that mindset. We have identified roles which can be done by the women. So that was the first level of challenge, whenever given a choice, because women as such is less at the key leadership roles. Given a choice, they always preferred hiring women or men, from colleges, even when you're going for campuses. So the pipeline starts decreasing at a later stage. So what we started doing is we asked them, for this role, can this role be done by a woman? So that itself, that exercise for them was an eye opener. So at this point of time, we have most of the roles which can be done irrespective of the gender. The second aspect which we have also done or consciously done is having a lot of awareness sessions for the managers to be aware of that biases which creep in. What sort of opportunities are they providing to the people? Then, having said it's a young organization, when the women come back from maternity, what sort of benefits you provide them? What sort of aspect which you can take care as a manager? Okay, we understand it's a shop floor, so we have a good crash so that there is comfort to bring the kids, because we can't allow work from home in a manufacturing setup, right? It's not
Right.
so much possible. And at max, we can't have so many people at that sort of a role to be given.
Right.
So how do
Right.
you do that balance is the trick of the game, I would say.
Oh, very nice. Nidhi, I mean, thank you for sharing all of that. It looks very comprehensive as you walked us through it. It clearly looks like shifting mindsets on such an important and critical topic in a manufacturing setup is a huge task, one that has to be, addressed systematically. But it has a great impact on belonging and purpose, like you also alluded to. And that brings me to our next segment of the question. Learning and development and growth opportunities have an equal role to play in belonging and purpose as well. Now, in a multi generational workforce, which most organizations are seeing today, ensuring equal access and personalized or aligned L&D opportunity becomes a leadership priority, but also a challenge at the same time. So, in such a case, how do you ensure that learning programs are personalized to individual needs, but collectively they are creating an impact for the organization? Would be great if we can hear your takeaways on this, as well as if you can share any success stories.
Sure. So, like coming to the shop floor perspective, we have different cohorts identified. And the learning needs are made on more on the cohorts. While we have a broad level functional, technical, and behavioral competencies identified for a manufacturing setup or for a engineering setup, what we have done is that when we do the training delivery, we are looking for a very customized cohort so that their needs are specific and the trainings are in-house made. The program design, the inputs which comes from the talent management team, as well as for the participants and the talent partners and the managers. So what we do differently is the need identification, we do it correctly. So what is the thing which we want to address? And then what is the medium and the time in which it will be curated or it will be delivered, whether it has to be online, offline, outbound, and all are the next steps. But having identified the problem statement which we are trying to address, rather than giving everybody a very similar sort of a training, while we have for certain governance training which we give to everybody, that is something we take like very much importance we give to it.
Right.
The second aspect is like when we try to look at the process things around the factory. So if I look at a manufacturing setup and considering that most of our lines are digitized, we look at where with the data, we try to look at what are the process gaps which we are seeing. So when we see that there is a issue where a operator is repeatedly missing to assemble a part, to give you
Right.
an example, then there are sensors which will alert the manager as well as the next station that this part is not there from visual cameras which we are able to identify. But we don't tell, this is an operator mistake. We try to understand what was the process which allowed this gap to happen. Is it
Right.
lack of training? Is it too cumbersome as a process? So we try to address everything through from a process lens. So it helps us to address the challenges which the operator failed. It is very easy to say it's an operator mistake.
Right.
Why a rework happened, why the assembly didn't happen properly. It's very easy to classify it as an operator mistake, but we try to put the lens of a process and we see what are the process improvements which can be done. What are the bottlenecks which we need to improve? It could be in form of better training. It could be in a better layout also. So we
Right.
also look at, when we are doing like we have so many people, supplier components coming up. So from a digital side of things, we ensure that, how do you have the traceability of the parts? So most of the lines, what are the things which the operator needs to know? What are the small level of coding which the operator needs to know? So small,
Right.
small things in small bite-sized packages, which we allow them to do. It helps them to develop their interest and move on to better roles if they are more interested, or also provide their in the current role, do it in a much better fashion. That's what we aim at.
Right. Thank you, Nidhi. I think one of the things that caught my attention was the systemic thinking that you're talking about. How can you step back and take a process lens to it and see what can be made sure in the process so that we are able to fix it and make sure that operators are not at fault. So, thank you for sharing that. We do have one question from the audience that I'm going to read out verbatim. What may be this question is coming in from Neeraj Pandey. What may be the modern effective sourcing tools to reach remote location diploma holders apart from campus hiring and job portal? So very specific on sourcing.
Uh, we actually have reached out with colleges, but there is also the government schemes of NAPS, where you have apprentice, where people registered themselves as who have passed their diploma. So we also hire from those under the government quota of 15% where we can hire. That is also one of the sourcing tools which we use. But having said that, we prefer hiring people from colleges, from direct, because they know, like, you can train them. And so our preference lies there. But we also hire people from the government portals where the people are diplomas, they register themselves. People who are ITIs, they register themselves. So there are NAP schemes and all. There earlier was a NEEM scheme in place, which now government has stopped. So we look at those opportunities. We also have few people who will be walking in and talking about it. So having said that, that reminds me of a story where, when we were building our first facility in Whitefield, and this was one of the parents sharing in one of our connects, where he was actually the painter of the facility. Okay. So
Right.
someone asked him, he asked, like, what is happening here? Like, I've been given this job. Then he said that, there is one industry, they're doing something in EV, they are coming. So he gives his resume of his son, and he gives it that, why don't you consider, to the security guard. So the security guard gives it to the manager, and that guy joins the organization, and he completes 3 years. And the parent was sharing when we had his induction, completion of the training. So that is where it is not like we just go and we don't hire from outside. But that is how his son was a diploma, we hired him. And that the joy of the parent is something which I still relate to when this question came, right? So, and you have different government schemes to source.
Right. Such a heartwarming story, Nidhi. Thank you so much for sharing that. Just continuing the stream with audience questions, we have one from Dr. Rachna Mittal. Could you share your competency assessment process or framework being used internally? Maybe just yeah.
That is also a internally developed framework. So basically, we prioritize problem solving, we prioritize emotionally matured leadership, we prioritize collaboration and decision making, problem solving. So those are the mostly the behavioral part of which we prioritize. And for each of the function, we have again broken down what are the technical skills and what are the levels at which the people need to be operating at, and then what are the plans to bridge the gaps at a particular level. So that is our overall competency framework, but that's a longer question to answer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ritwik, we can take that up.
But it's good to get an overarching understanding of what makes up key behavioral skills at the workplace. Just moving on, there's another question from Gopi R, which is, are you using or implemented Gen AI solutions? I mean, of course. If yes, could you explain how and what was the impact before and after?
What we have done is we also feel like IoT is also something like everything is IoT nowadays. So we go out to the basics, which is again data. So we use a lot of data to answer or find problems and find patterns to solve those issues which are on a recurring way. So like I said, the earlier example of the operator or a process thing, we've also seen a lot of quality issues which can be tackled through and then having a tool to tell you whether our manufacturing efficiency system, MES, is also in-house developed.
Right.
Am I still audible this?
Yes.
So our MES is also in-house developed. So we have put lot of systems, checks and balances to ensure that our lines are running smoothly. So in each of the connectors and the sensors, how you are reading the data, there are a lot of Gen AI tools being used.
Okay. Okay. Very interesting. I have another question which is quite important and critical in today's day and age. How do you prepare leaders for supply chain disruptions? And we are seeing with all the crises around the globe, with the wars that are happening and the conflicts that are in place, uh, especially due to geopolitical situations, even tariff, etc.
So for supply chain also, what we have done is we have a very strong component strategy, So each of the critical components, we have a strategy. We have thought about, what are the disruptions which could have an impact, like, the tariff, the logistics, the wars, the shipment, the sea routes were the only routes to do. So what we have done is we have done a lot of scenario planning even there. We have done strategic partnership across locations so that if something fails at one point of time, we can get it from the other place. So a lot of focus on strategic thinking and scenario planning for the supply chain leaders. It is also having deep domain knowledge on the commodities and the components in which they deal. So that is something which we put across. We have classified like our suppliers, and also from the risk per se, like we have a meeting, which are the products which could go for a risk, considering there is a war impending between China,
Right.
tariff for China, or the Russia war. So for each of these, the team, while we have a blueprint of what should be our commodity strategy for each of the sourcing of those components, the team also comes up quickly and makes different scenarios in similar cross-functional manner, where they partner with the external suppliers also to ensure from a supply chain disruption. I would say every 6 years, if I go back at Ather, every year has been some sort of a disruption. Earlier we had a electronic cell was a challenge. Then
Right.
while that happened, then we had electronic components, the small components became a challenge. So what we do is, how do we come back, bounce back, and have more alternatives, which has helped us innovate in our ways. How do you have different multi-sourcing of the same product, multi-vendors? How do you get the cross cost advantage? So deep domain knowledge also we rely on
Right.
from a competency perspective.
Yeah. And I think some of the things that you alluded to earlier, like collaboration, problem solving, all of that coming together makes it possible for your leaders to be ready for crisis and be able to respond to
Yeah.
it appropriately. And of course, hand in hand goes the systemic responses as well, the risk mitigation processes that you have put in place. So thank you for running us through that, Nidhi. The next question from audience is, many manufacturing companies operate with a mix of full-time employees and contract laborers, the gig economy, right? How can organizations ensure that their learning and development strategies are inclusive of this extended workforce, especially when it comes to important critical topics like safety, compliance, and digital skills?
So no one stops us to give that training for health or a safety thing, because ultimately they're part of your shop floor.
Right.
You cannot say that, the operator, because he was on a contract role, made a mistake and I'm moving forward, because it has the similar impact which your full-time employee would be making. So maybe you might have to classify your training programs, few training programs, the safety ones, which can be made mandatory. We have also made safety programs mandatory, and we also operate on a mix per se. So we made our safety programs, the governance programs mandatory, which is the POSH, the anti-bribery thing, so anti-fraud policy. So there are those mandatory ones which we, the only difference is you might want to engage the vendor or the third party who has engaged them with you as a work contract, and ask them to deliver these trainings. You can partner with them, and if you're okay, you can share your content with them and they will be able to deliver. So
Right.
it is more about the mindset. Do you want to, you consider them as part of you or not? Or because there will be always issues, like, so
Yeah.
if you consider them that they are important and critical for you, you will find ways to train them. It
Yeah.
won't be that just because they are your contract workforce, you're not not allowed to share some material which is of their well-being.
Right. Right. No, that's
And
true.
if,
Yeah.
and also, like, if the people see what is it in for them, they will be more than eager to attend the training programs. You won't need any incentives around that. If I know that if I wear a safety gloves and it saves my fingers, the day I realize that I will wear it, I will not say it is sweating.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's true. And I think a lot of organizations we are seeing are taking a more ecosystem view where they are thinking about their partners in the entire supply chain process and even pushing DEI mandates, ESG mandates, climate mandates to all of them, saying that you have to, adhere to these norms if you want to work with us. So I think that's how you are influencing as a leading organization. That's how you're trying to influence the entire ecosystem. So thank you so much. I'll just take one last question from the audience. How do you handle job role redundancy?
How do we handle job role redundancy? We try to see where else can we see the person's fitment. And now that we have a very robust competency framework, we ensure that, where are the most parallel movements of the person possible. So if person is in a production, he can move into a quality sort of a role. So from a competency framework is where we rely on. We also see like if with certain trainings, can the person move into a engineering sort of a role, which is also production based. So we try to find out those parallels and see if the person can make a movement there. Instead of thinking like, this is the end. We are also okay to see if for certain development projects, the person can utilize his bandwidth for.
Right. We have one last feedback poll. If we can cue that for the audience, please. Would you like to learn more about the transformation programs that KNOLSKAPE is doing for its manufacturing clients? Yes, no, not sure. Please go ahead and participate in the poll. Okay, I think we've got the responses are coming in, Nidhi, and we can move to the closure. I can't thank you enough for your time and for your insights. It's been rich. It's been super informative. And I think you've clearly highlighted the transformational journey that manufacturing sector is moving through. And it gives us great confidence that we will be able to meet the $1 trillion ambitious target that the government has set. Thank you again. Thank you to the audience for joining us, for taking time out of their schedules and joining us, and wishing everyone a great week ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Ritwik. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.